Lives lost as Superstorm Sandy pounds America's east coast, paralysing New York. A St Kilda footballer granted bail after facing court. Anger from a murdered mum's family over her killer's jail sentence. Snakes on the move in our suburbs as the weather heats up. And a love rekindled after an incredible 60 years apart.
This is 9 News with Peter Hitchner.
Good evening. America was warned of a storm not seen in 300 years, and Sandy has delivered, causing widespread destruction. At least 13 people are dead and New York brought to its knees. US correspondent Denham Hitchcock was in Manhattan as Sandy hit and begins our coverage.
A supercharged storm that tore in from the Atlantic.
Whoa, hey guys. Whoa.
A three-pronged attack, screaming winds, drenching rain and a storm surge that drowned the coast.
This city is basically underwater.
Atlantic City, its famous boardwalk, reduced to driftwood.
Check the police storm's going down.
At sea, a risky helicopter rescue as the replica of the Bounty sank off North Carolina.
First survivors coming out of the raft.
16 on board. Most made it into a life raft. Some extraordinary skills as the pilot and crew winched 14 to safety.
I said, hey, I'm Dan. I heard you guys need a ride.
One dead and the captain still missing. A storm so big, only a picture from space did it any justice. 15 times the size of Cyclone Tracy. So vast it would stretch from Brisbane to Melbourne.
When they tell you to evacuate, you need to evacuate.
I have to keep on reminding myself this is not some beachside suburb or a seaside town, but New York. Streets, cars underwater, and the backdrop? Those city lights are gone. And here, the main arm of a building crane buckled in 80-kilometre-an-hour winds. Tons of steel left swinging over the street below.
Watch your back, folks. Get on the sidewalk.
The wind and rain combined, weakening the front of an apartment block. It collapsed, leaving a doll's house view of the rooms inside. Somehow, no one was injured. Times Square, the lights were on, but everyone was home, including Aussie Tony Marlow.
We've got some candles, some cards. There are 3 of us here holed up. We seem pretty well. We've got a bathtub full of water just in case.
Lower Manhattan under attack again as a storm surge swept into construction works at Ground Zero and washed into road tunnels and the city's subway.
You can see the water is flowing down into these grates, and you'd think, well, if it's a storm water, well, it's not so bad, but it's not. This is so far up from the coast. What this is the subway tunnel. That is the subway down there, one of the main lines. This is not a storm drain, it is a subway tunnel. So down there, the tracks, all that equipment they have down there, all the power they have running down there is currently being flooded with water, and that is part of this huge damage bill they're going to see from this.
We have seen record surge levels. We're seeing an extraordinary amount of water throughout Lower Manhattan. The latest estimates show roughly 250,000 customers without power.
And this is why. Water floods a substation, there's a fire, and then it explodes. Floods.
Oh my God, it's washing everything away!
Rain and fires. An apartment block ablaze and 25 people rescued. At one of New York's biggest hospitals, the backup generators failed, and so staff had to evacuate patients, including babies. Much of New York is now in darkness, half its residents without power.
It's out of a movie. Everything's grey and moving, the winds are blowing. There's water creeping up, Tribeca. It makes absolutely no sense.
For the first time since the 9/11 attacks, Manhattan is isolated. All its bridges and tunnels closed by the flooding and high winds. Denham Hitchcock, 9 News, New York.
Not only was New York paralysed, an entire country was stopped in its tracks. From the stock market to the presidential campaign, normal life has been put on hold. More from Robert Penfold.
This storm is so big and so brutal, where it first slammed onto land really didn't matter. And now, the freak event smothers most of the east coast of America. Stretching from Florida all the way to Canada, some 1,600 kilometres across. It's the biggest storm ever.
This is going to be a big storm. It's going to be a difficult storm. The great thing about America is when we go through tough times like this, we all pull together.
A year ago, Hurricane Irene wreaked havoc across the eastern United States. Sandy is twice as big, and much more devastating. The biggest threat isn't the wind, as bad as that is, but the storm surge, the rising water that's drowning the coastline, which has triggered now massive flooding. And it's just not the rain. In some areas, it's coming down as a snow dump. The wind is blasting all the way up to Canada. They haven't seen weather like this in over 300 years. 11 million people are without power, and that's expected to double as Sandy lumbers slowly inland, through Philadelphia, western New York State, then on to Canada, where it's expected to finally fizzle out, but not until Saturday. With more than 13,000 flights already cancelled, passengers across the country have been stranded, and the backlog will take days to clear. Even the trains have been ordered to stop, leaving passengers with nowhere to go.
Passengers were not stranded, that's the term I would not use, but we terminated the service here in Washington.
It is stranded. You have no transportation for you to get to your destination, so you are stranded.
And the election campaign has ground to a halt. President Barack Obama was a no-show at his own rally in Florida, flying back to Washington to deal with the crisis. As the residents left, the reporters arrived, and they quickly learned too that this storm was one not to be trifled with.
But safely moved away from all of that water.
This does not look good. Oh, excuse me. Oh, it looks like the sandy walkway out to the beach it's actually got my food stuff. Oh my gosh. You can see not a pretty picture here in Delaware.
With Wall Street closed because of the weather for the first time since the 1800s, economists haven't even started to count the cost to the economy. But the cleanup bill alone is likely to top $3 billion. In the United States, Robert Penfold, 9 News.
And for the latest, let's go live to New York and Denham Hitchcock. Denham, what's the situation there right now?
Well, Peter, I've finished this day where I started it, down in Battery Park, but a little earlier the water was up to my head, so now it is down to about ankle deep. It is going out as fast as it came in, but you can drive through huge areas of this city 20 minutes at a time without seeing a single light, no building lights, no traffic lights. Those great symbols of New York, the footprints of the world, Twin Towers, and also even the stock exchange, I'm told, has got water damage. They're saying it could take up to a week to repair. Peter, this city has been crippled.
Thank you, Denham. Denham Hitchcock.